Unfortunately, it's more common than you may think. Food sensitivities and allergies, they don't need to be just rashes or hives or swollen lips. I see it with children in clinic. A parent walks in, they're exhausted, and they've got a great big folder full of pediatric notes or specialist referrals and a prescription often for antibiotics or steroid creams. Now, their child is chronically unwell. They've got frequent ear infections, like sometimes the grommets in there, and sometimes eczema flare-ups or digestive issues, or even behavioural issues like ADHD. That's becoming really common, unfortunately, as a diagnosis. And the parent is stuck in that cycle of symptom management. In this video, I'm not going to tell you what every other video has said. I'll give parents the straight advice, and that's why these methods are growingly becoming more and more effective, this holistic treatment model. So many parents are realizing getting back to traditional methods, they're really working, and it's very exciting these days, and it's paying off for the child as well. In this video, I'm not going to recommend a routine skin allergy test. This is the most common one, or what 99% of pediatricians will recommend to you. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to cover three main things. So could your child have a food sensitivity right now? Now, they're different to allergies. Sensitivities are different. I'm going to talk about that. Number two, why do sensitivities develop in a child? Number three, how to evaluate if your child is reacting with a sensitivity. Now, when you're a parent of a child with recurring health issues, there's a lot of pressure, unfortunately, to just fix it. No, it's really immense for you. I get that. The medical system is designed to provide immediate, localized fixes, often pharmaceuticals. But as a naturopath with 2 decades of clinical experience, I've learned that the body rarely misbehaves without a reason. It's giving you signals to what's going on. There are almost always connections between the systems in the body. And sensitivities and food sensitivities, they're not alone in this situation. So furthermore, they impact other systems inside your child's body, like it'll affect their brain, and it'll affect their immune systems, and it'll affect their skin. If we just think about the amazing human body, it was born to be a perfect body and in harmony. That's what it's designed for. It tries its best to stay in balance. Think of your last cold, for example, and your body didn't think, hey, this cold is fun, I want to always stay sick and stay sick. It returns to the state of health. It might take a couple of days or a week, and that equilibrium of wellness, that's what the body's trying to do. Sure, an allergic reaction to a bee sting or an ant bite or another trigger, sure, it flares up, but then it corrects. If your child is suffering from recurring health issues, like they're not always optimal and they don't recover fast like they should, the first step is to shift your mindset from what medicine is stopping this to what is this symptom trying to tell me? It's giving you signals. So in the case of food sensitivities, they're probably definitely happening, but they're not the only thing that's happening. It would be a secondary reaction, but making the whole system work harder with that sensitivity going under the water and negatively impacting nutrient absorption, mood, sleep, and things like that. I'll explain more of that later on, but it's important for me to set the foundational knowledge so you can understand the interconnectedness of your child's health and wellness. So our job is to improve the whole body by improving each little negative reaction, like food sensitivities, and then that'll make the big body, the whole system, work well. So let's touch on the myth of the broken child. The biggest hurdle for parenting is to view the body as a machine that breaks down for no reason. That's a big hurdle to get over. We see a symptom and we try and focus on that, but we shouldn't do that. In truth, the body is an incredibly intelligent, self-regulating organism. When a child develops eczema, for example, it isn't a skin problem. It's often the body's way of offloading systemic inflammation and toxins because the primary organs are overloaded and they're detoxifying through the skin, like the liver and the gut, and the skin is taking up the slack. And they're struggling to keep with that load. Now, a tiny little eczema patch, it's probably going to improve with time, changes in the diet or sleep, etc. But when it progresses into a much bigger patch and worsens in that way, then we really should step in as soon as we can to help it turn it back in the right direction to wellness. Now, we need to assist to reduce the food sensitivities. This is going to help. I'll give you an example of my son. He's 19 years old now and amazingly healthy. Now, when he was a baby, he had eczema, lots of allergies and sensitivities. If he continued without dietary changes or changes in his microbiome and digestive health and nutrition and herbs, he probably would have gotten much worse with time. Who knows where he would have been now? Luckily, he has me as a practitioner, right? Now, let's ask the question of why do sensitivities develop in children? When we label reactions as food sensitivities, we're only really looking at the tip of the iceberg. Yes, a child might react to dairy or gluten or eggs or things like that, but why are they reacting? That's a really important question. A robust, healthy digestive system should handle a vast array of foods. When it can't, it's a signal that the integrity of the gut lining has been compromised or that the gut microbiome is out of balance. I've talked about that in other videos of the importance of the gut. You could watch more of those later. Furthermore, the cascade follows and flows on with the immune system and dysregulation in that immune system. Basically, the balance has been disrupted. To clear the fog, I encourage parents to look at their child's health through 4 fundamental pillars. And these rarely get discussed in a 10-minute GP consultation. I mean, doctors are very busy and they've got to treat that immediate thing for you, so I get it. Doctors treat sick kids, that's their job, but naturopaths like me support wellness. So let's get your child well. I mean, let's get them really well. So number 1, the microbiome and the terrain in medicine. Now there's this famous historical debate between Louis Pasteur, my French is not very good, who he believed in the germs were the enemy, and there was Anton Béchamp. My pronunciation is probably not right. He believed in the terrain theory. He believed the internal environment of the body was the determinant of disease. Now, I subscribe to him, thinking of the terrain as the whole. If your child is plagued by recurrent infections, the focus shouldn't be just on the pathogen. It should be on the terrain. Now, if the diet is high in processed packaged foods, for example, they feed despotic bacteria and yeast. They're definitely not good for the system. Are they getting enough nutrient-dense foods, real foods to support the mucosal lining in the gut? And when the terrain is deficient in minerals as well, or overrun by imbalance in microbiome or pathogens or opportunistic bacteria, the immune system becomes hypersensitive and inflammatory, and that really doesn't help optimal health. Number 2, the burden of environmental toxins. Now, Australia has some of the highest rates of allergies in the world. Did you know? There just seems to be every second child is having some type of allergy, and we live in an increasing synthetic world. From phthalates in plastic toys to microparticulate matter in indoor air quality or chemical residual in conventional products, the body is really burdened and it seems to be getting worse. When I consult with parents, I ask them questions like, what do you wash the clothes in? What is burning in the air freshener? Is the house damp, for example, or does it potentially have carpets? And sometimes a food sensitivity is actually a reaction to an environmental load that's tipped the child's bucket to empty out. It's just tipped it over the top. If the body is fighting to detoxify from the environmental pollutants, its ability to tolerate common food proteins drops significantly. Number 3, nutrient density versus calorie intake. We've got a global epidemic of overfed but undernourished children. Big problem. You can provide a child with plenty of calories. Just walk through the supermarket and things are really cheap, big bags of cheap things. But what about calorie food that's high in micronutrients like selenium, molybdenum, or iodine, like nutrient-dense foods? But the body can mount an effective immune response with those, and it can heal the gut because it's got the right tools. And very common deficiencies in Australia are vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, omega fatty. Actually, a lot iodine is becoming one as well. Zinc, for example, it's a gatekeeper for the immune system, really good modulator of the T helper cells 1 and T helper cells 2. And also enzyme reactions. Without zinc, the mucosal lining of the gut barrier can't be repaired efficiently, and that increases leaky gut and permeability of the gut. This allows undigested food particles to enter the bloodstream, and it triggers the immune system to create autoantibodies, which we called food sensitivities. Now, number 4, the nervous system connection, the gut-brain axis. We cannot overlook the role of stress and negative impact on wellness. Yes, children feel stress. They definitely do, especially with things like ADHD or anxiety conditions when they creep up. Lack of sleep, school, even sensory overload. The nervous system and the digestive system are really interlaced and connected. When a child is in constant fight or flight state, the body diverts energy away from the digestion and repair. If your child is perpetually wired, their digestive system will never function optimally, regardless of how clean their diet is. How to evaluate food sensitivities in your child? That's a question you might have. When you suspect a food sensitivity, the knee-jerk reaction is to pull everything out of the diet. That's sometimes what I see. Be careful. Elimination diets can be stressful for a growing child, and they may mask underlying issues. Instead, use these steps to think clearly. Number 1, a Food-mood-stool journal. Do not rely on your memory. You've got a busy life, running kids around and stuff like that. For 3 weeks, I want you to track every piece of food, the child's demeanor, or their mood, and their bowel movements. You will often see patterns. For example, a child might be irritable after they eat a certain food, or they might have blue stools 2 hours after eating a certain processed snack. And quality first. Before removing food groups, ensure the food you're feeding them is the highest quality. Like, for example, could you give them A2 and raw milk instead of regular one? Is the wheat sourdough and soaked and fermented to break down the phytic acid? Many children stop reacting to the processing of food changes just by making that change. Rather than the food itself, you just change the type of food. Now, supporting the gut, don't just exclude. Start by introducing fermented foods like sauerkraut, kefir. There's lots of great flavors around these days, and bone broths, if you can make it homemade, fantastic, which are rich in glycine and collagen. And focus on healing the lining first. Moving beyond the prescription, let's look at that. The Australian medical model often treats the child as a vessel for pharmaceutical intervention, unfortunately. If a child has an ear infection, we give it antibiotics. If they have a rash, we give it cortisone steroid cream. But consider the long-term costs. Antibiotics wipe out the microbiome, which is the very thing that teaches the immune system to behave. By killing the bad bacteria, you're often destroying the good bacteria, and that prevents the next infection potentially because it's modulating the immune system. To clear your mind as a parent, you must be willing to accept that healing takes time. I can't stress that enough. Be patient, and it's a process. A pharmaceutical might mask a symptom for 24 hours. They have the ability to do that, but true physiological healing takes weeks. It could even take months or years for deeper healing. So it requires patience, your patience, and observational skills as well, and a refusal to be intimidated by the quick fix culture, which is all happening at this moment. If you feel like you're drowning in information, return to the basics. Ask yourself these 4 questions when a health issue arises. Is this acute or chronic? If your child is in immediate danger, sure, use the medical system. That's what it's best for. Trauma or stabilization, like in a broken bone, definitely. Once the crisis is over, move to a naturopathic model for long-term health. Number 2, what is the body trying to push out? Mucus, skin rashes, and diarrhea. They're forms of excretion. Like they might have a bug and they might have diarrhea and get it out, and then it's finished. How can I support the organs of elimination, liver, kidneys, bowel, rather than suppressing the symptoms? Number 3, what have we added to the system that's potentially toxic? And what have we removed that's potentially vital? How do we start this? Did we start this new detergent, or how did this begin? Did we switch to a low quality food perhaps, or a different brand? Are they lacking essential minerals? And number 4, is my child getting enough primitive input? Like in our modern times, we lack dirt, sunlight, natural circadian rhythms. Does your child spend enough time barefoot in nature? Are they exposed to enough sunlight to drive their vitamin D levels? Many sensitivities are simply manifestations of indoor sterile lifestyle. Quite shocking. This world we live in now seems to be getting more screen time and blue light. I often remind the parents in my YouTube community, disease is not an accident. It's a language, really. We have to learn to listen. And when your child is struggling, lean in, listen, be still for a moment, and look for the systemic root. Focus on nourishing the terrain, reducing the toxic load, and supporting the body's innate, miraculous ability to regulate itself. The goal just isn't to stop the coughing, the scratching, or the stomach pain. The goal is to build a robust, resilient child that can navigate the coming years when they're growing and thriving and playing, and building a strong immune system and balancing nervous system as well. This is the naturopathic way. It isn't just the fastest path, but it's a path that always most definitely leads to health rather than the absence of sickness. You have the power to change your path of your child's health. It starts with a shift in perspective, a focus on nutrient-dense foundations, and the courage to trust your own observations over fear-based narratives that are all around. And we are really flooded with them these days. So I'm happy to guide you on this path. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. I share so many other videos, and I want you to continue. You can continue with this one right here.